It is early morning on another stinking hot day. As I look at the ground, I catch a peculiar sight. I see for the first time a gum-leaf grasshopper. Look closely. Can you spot them? I confess I lose sight of them, but then they move. The grasshopper leads me to one of my favorite gentle giants, and there I hear a familiar sound. High in the tree, a baby bird is calling for their mother. Over time, I've learnt what this call means. I'm hungry, Mum. Feed me. And so she does. Through the lens of my camera, I witnessed this intimate moment, feeling tremendously grateful, for I know it is a privilege. And while I feel a tad uncomfortable in the heat, my heart is full. My wonder walks feed my heart and soul. Strengthened, I can return to my little world. What strengthens you, Wonder Weavers? I'd love you to share with me in the comments below. This week I took a break from my bigger projects to have some fun and do something for Easter. And I made my first Easter egg diorama using materials I have in my studio, so at home. And I was inspired to do this activity as a result of reading about the origins of Easter. In particular, I was inspired by the mythology of Eostre or Eostre, the goddess of spring. So I hope you enjoy this week's creative adventure, Wonder Weavers. And before we leap in and start creating, I'm curious, what stories do you love reading or listening to during spring? And what kind of arts and craft do you like doing to mark Easter? Now, let's make an Easter egg diorama. This week I've been getting into the spirit of Easter, and I find myself drawing birds' nests and bunnies. And while doing this, I start wondering, what's the relationship between rabbits and eggs? This question leads me to explore the origins of Easter and the stories of Eostre. Eostre is the Germanic spring goddess, and according to various stories, at the end of winter she found a bird that could not fly. She saved the animal's life by transforming them into a hare. And it is said that the hare laid coloured eggs for her. This story captures my imagination, and I'm inspired to create an Easter egg diorama, which will include a scene from the story. I start my Easter creative adventure by making a paper mâché egg. I blow up a balloon. I blow it up so it's roughly about 5 centimeters tall. Then I place on the balloon strips of brown paper soaked in a PVA and water mixture. As you can see, I don't cover where I tied the balloon and also the front of the egg. Later, once this first layer is dry, I remove the balloon carefully. And then cover the hole. Once completely dry, I trim the front of the egg. Next, inside and at the bottom of the egg, I add a layer of paper mâché pulp, and this will be for the ground. In a previous vlog I share how I make paper mâché pulp. I've added a link to that video in the description. The egg needs strengthening, and usually I would add another 3 or 4 layers of paper, but today I decided to try a new method, and that is to add a layer of filler. I apply the layer of filler with the help of my palette knife. Once completely dry, I lightly sand the layer of filler. As a final layer, I apply strips of white tissue paper soaked in the PVA and water mixture. Next, I start working on the scene. I begin by making mini daffodils, a flower traditionally associated with Easter. I first cut 4 cm lengths of copper beading wire and cover them with green florist tape. Next, I cut out leaves from green Italian crepe paper. I cut 3 elongated ovals with the help of a template that I cut out from cardstock. Next, following similar steps, I cut out the flower's corona or trumpet and also its petals. In total, I cut 6 petals. Now that I've cut out the flower's parts, I begin to assemble the flower. I first cover the end of the stem with yellow crepe paper. and then wrap the trumpet around the end, securing it in place with PVA glue. Then one by one, I glue the petals, overlapping them. Finally, I glue the leaves to the stem. Once dry, I bend the head forward and curl the petals. For the scene, I've decided to needle felt a tiny rabbit. This will be a wonderful mini challenge. As you can see, I've made a technical drawing of the parts of the rabbit. This helps me to work out how much wool I need to use. I start with the rabbit's torso, mindfully working the wool with a fine needle. I sculpt the wool at a slow pace, being mindful of my fingers. I continue to work until the wool is firm. I put the torso aside, roll a small ball of wool and begin felting the rabbit's head. I take a wisp of black wool, roll it in between my fingers. This will be an eye. I then attach the tiny ball with a fine needle. I repeat these steps to make a second eye. I then attach the head to the torso. Next, I work 2 wisps of brown wool. I sculpt these into oblong shapes, and these will be the rabbit's front legs. For the rabbit's ears, I follow a similar process. I take 2 wisps of brown wool and work them into slightly larger oblong shapes. Before I attach the ears to the head of the rabbit, I add a tiny amount of white wool. Finally I add a small ball of white wool for the tail. Using the paper mâché technique, I make the rabbit's coloured eggs. I dab a little bit of water and PVA glue on a small strip of toilet paper, and then roll the paper into an oval-shaped bead. Once I'm happy with the shape, I leave it to dry. Once completely dry, I paint the beads with acrylic paint. Now it is time to assemble the scene. I paint the interior of the egg with gesso, and later I paint the back of the egg sky blue. Then I paint the paper mâché pulp green with acrylic paint. Next, with matte medium, I apply a layer of green origami paper. The paper has a lovely texture that reminds me of vegetation, so I thought it would make a nice backdrop. Next, I glue the mini daffodils in place and the eggs. And before I add the rabbit, I decorate the external part of the egg with decorative stickers and crepe paper flowers. And as one last touch, I add a bird. And the rabbit. So there you go, Wonder Weavers. I've made an egg inspired by the goddess of spring. Thank you for watching, Wonder Weavers. Don't forget you can connect with me on other platforms. All of my details are in the description. Until the next time, take care, stay well, and don't forget to play. Adios. Ciao.